Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show. It's episode 663. We've got a long-term friend of the show. She has been on the panel show for the past few months, and she's bedded down really well. We thought it was time to have a deeper discussion with Heather Renze. And she is the unicorn whisperer. So what more can we say? So, Heather, would you like to quickly give us like a 20-second intro about yourself?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Heather Renze. I am the Unicorn Whisperer, which was given to me as a moniker because I help to create unicorn growth companies and also unicorn growth people. Um, I've worked with the everyone from Evernote, which I was part of as an early employee. I was an early employee at Spirit Airlines. I work with governments around the world. Currently, my big thing is I'm working with AFWorks, which is the innovation arm of the U.S. Air Force and Space Force. So got a lot of stuff on my plate.
Oh, great. And I got my co-host, Stephen. Would you like to quickly introduce yourself, Stephen?
Yeah, Stephen Sauer from zipfish.io.
And before we go into the main part of the show, we're going to be discussing with Heather the early days of Evernote. She's written a new book. I'm going to ask her what the book's about and why she wrote it. I'm going to be asking Heather her experience of being a minority in the tech industry, i.e. being a woman, and a lot of other stuff. It should be a great discussion. But before we go into the main part of the show, I want to talk about our main sponsor, which is Kinsta Hosting. Now, folks, if you've got a WooCommerce site, you've got a learning management system, anything that needs performance, you need quality hosting, and that's what you get with Kinsta. They've been hosting the WP-Tonic site for about 3 years. It's a big website. I've been really happy with the performance in general, and they're just a great crew to work with. So if you're looking for a great and premier WordPress hosting company, you should go over to Kinsta, have a look at their packages either for yourself or for a client, and I suggest that you should buy one of them. If you do that, please do the show a favor, and also Kinsta, tell them that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. It helps them and it also helps us. Your support is much appreciated. So, Heather, so like I say, you were like one of the first employees ever know, and you recently wrote a book, The Birth of a Unicorn, 6 Basic Steps to Success. I think that's the title. Oh yeah, she's got a copy. If you're watching this, listeners and viewers, which you should. Why did you decide to write the book, and what's the basic message that you want to get across in the book?
So a couple of years ago, after I left Evernote, I started working at a company called ROCeteer, which is my consulting company that was formed based on a friend of mine, Tony Shea, who unfortunately just passed away recently. He wanted help with coaching and mentoring and advising his investment portfolio, especially in downtown Las Vegas. And he loved Evernote. He loved the things that we were doing there. And he wanted people that had been in business to really help these young seed stage entrepreneurs who were a lot of first-time entrepreneurs to get them on the right track. So he asked me and a couple of other experienced people that had done this before successfully to come and form a company to help them do that. And as part of that, I started telling all of these stories that I noticed I was telling the same ones over and over again because these entrepreneurs have the same problems. Like every one of them is running into the same, they're beating their head against the wall over and over again. And I saw people coming into these mentor sessions and having a book list. And these were all the same business books being read over and over again. And they were all basically like, if you do this, then your business is going to be successful. And they were like, but I've done all this stuff, or it doesn't apply to me because I haven't got all this money, or like, I just don't understand why it's not working. And so
well, it's a crap idea, that's why.
well, partly. I
What?
mean, a lot of them are not the best ideas, right? I mean, if I have to see another VIP nightclub app cross my desk here in Las Vegas, I'll probably scream.
I've just got one, actually. I'm disappointed that you should. No, I'm sorry. Sorry. I just can't resist teasing him. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
she brings the worst out of me. That's what,
well, I mean, I'm also.
She's the only one that laughs at my jokes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an angel investor, and I work with VC funds, so I see a lot of pitches, and I work with a lot of groups, and like, I mean, these teams see the same thing. So, I mean, basically, the book came about because, I mean, there's no business book that actually shows people the struggle of what it is to be an entrepreneur, from it being not an overnight success. Like, I mean, they see of the story is like, oh, Airbnb comes onto the scene after it's already successful. And they're like, oh, I'm going to be the next Airbnb. I'm going to be the next Uber. They don't know about the fact that the Uber guys took multiple business failures before they figured out how Uber got there. So I wrote a book about the multiple businesses it took us before we got Evernote, and all the emotional roller coaster it took to build that, and the family life that it screwed up on the way there.
Oh, well, there we go. Stephen, over to you.
I think one of the big questions I have about when you're an entrepreneur and you're thinking about building a business, do you have to say I'm going to build a unicorn and then go for that? Does that have to be a conceptual grounding point of the business? This is the goal, so this is what we are going to do? Or is it something that kind of just happens? All of a sudden one thing happens and the next thing happens, and then all of a sudden you start getting revenue, and then you realize wait, we can build this into a unicorn company, or we can build this into something huge?
So one of the things that I teach I mean, that's not necessarily in the book itself. I mean, as a concept, is that, I mean, you understand it as a subtext, but is that a unicorn idea for a business is very simple. So, for example, if you have to be able to understand something instinctually for it to be a unicorn business, because it for you to be something that's worth billions of dollars and more, and then for it to be a publicly traded company that's used around the world, this has to be something that multiple people are going to use around the world for years to come, and just understand the first time they see it, and then it becomes a daily use thing for them. We're talking about a car, or peanut butter, or something like that. This is not a nightclub app. So for something like Evernote, we knew it was a unicorn idea because it was something that people were going to need to use, not just every day to take notes, but for the rest of their lives. Somebody would start using this when their baby was born to capture memories from it, and that baby whose account was started the day they were born would still be using this when they're 100 years old to see the pictures, the notes, the heartbeat from their first sonogram. When they have Alzheimer's someday, they'll be able to look back to their entire life. This is a life capture application. That is a unicorn idea. So if you're not creating something like that, you do not have a $1 billion business. You do not have a unicorn.
That's a really good thought, because everybody, when they're trying to describe their business, oftentimes we are the X of this, right? Like we are the Uber of this, we are the Airbnb of this, we are the Evernote of that. And like you use that because like those businesses are super simple. You understand the concept, and therefore like it's a very relatable sort of analogy.
Right.
Um,
And
that we're saying, like,
Evernote,
the simplicity of
Evernote's
it.
was remember everything.
Yeah.
And that's really it. Like it comes down to remember everything for your life, for like whatever you need to capture, it's there.
Do you think that services businesses can like rocket as fast as product businesses do, or like can you build a unicorn service business, or if somebody comes to you with a service business, say like, hey, I want to build this into something huge? It's like, well, that's going to take forever. Like that's probably not your best idea. Like look for the product.
So something like an Ogilvy can be a services business that can be publicly traded and is obviously worth multi-billions. But I mean, that's built on the Ogilvy brand
Yeah.
that sells services. And that's because they have a multi-billion-dollar book of business that they're selling services to year after year. And they've built that brand name for almost 100 years now. So like, yes, you can build a multi-billion-dollar services business, but you better have the client book that you can resell year after year. I mean, just watch Mad Men to understand what that takes.
Yeah. What are like getting back to your book, like what are some of those stories that are in the book that you've like had to retell over and over, that you decided like, hey, let's distill these down into this book format? Like what are some of those like high points or some of those nuances in there?
So, I mean, there's so many, like, I mean, every single story in the book, I've compressed or condensed in some way to make a point. Like the whole book is structured around the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs. And I've basically picked stories that help you understand where you are among that point, and then also tried to tell it chronologically to be the story of Evernote. So one that is in particular that I've told a lot to people that's really resonated is about company culture, and how there was one time after the Evernote security breach where everybody's mood was down. I mean, obviously, because our company values, our core values of the whole company were your data is private, your data is portable, and your data is protected. Those were the three core values of the company. And when you have a security breach, we violated two of those core values. And if you've got 450 employees around the world that live and breathe those values every day, that is like a dagger to the heart. So the first thing that I did, because it was my job to be the morale for the whole company, to get everybody back on track, to answer the service, and to make sure that the communication going out with our legal department was correct in all of the languages, in all of the countries that we were serving. I turned about 90% of the employees of the company into customer service people overnight, so that we could answer the 80% plus, well, actually like 800% more influx, because we're at like 2,000 customer service requests a day to 20,000 customer service requests a day. So we needed help quickly. So now everybody, we had to train up overnight to be able to do that. And I had to do daily all hands with everyone at least twice a day around the world, multiple time zones, as well as I set up I don't know if you remember something called Turntable FM. This was kind of like an early Spotify, but people could jump in and set, like 4 people at a time could like set the jukebox to what it was. So I set it, I've preloaded it with a playlist, and then I let the entire company go in and add to the music. And for the first couple of days, it was really like kind of somber, sad music. And then by the end of the week, like happier music started to come in. And then after 2 weeks, it was all happier music.
Mm.
And then by the end of the month, all of the sad music was gone. And it was really funny because we'd have like Weird Al Yankovic songs followed by Gwar, followed by K-pop, followed by Garth Brooks. And like you got to listen to like the entire company around the world. And like everybody was just happy and laughing and asking each other about this music, and it just brought up the collective mood. So yeah, I tell that story in a much more literate, succinct way in the book.
That's cool. That's a pretty amazing pivot to take like that large of an organization to get all those people to do customer service stuff to like kind of help bail out the water or whatever, get right the ship to keep things moving forward. And I'm sure like even in doing that, like it brings the whole company together because now you're all in it together. You're not like as isolated in your own little buckets. That's really cool. What
I think
no,
we need to go for a break,
okay.
actually, Stephen. And he might let me ask a question. You never
Sorry.
know, listeners and viewers. There we go. We're going to have our break. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. I think we've had already, the time flies, doesn't it, when you're having a good discussion, a good chat, as I say. So we've been having a really good chat with Heather Renze, the unicorn whisperer. So Heather, you're not directly in the WordPress world, but you kind of hover around the edges, don't you? Because I've met you a couple of times at some word camps, and you joined our panel. And you put up with my madness, but you're used to that. So where do you see WordPress as a slightly outsider? What do you think where it's going, and what 2021 is going to be like for WordPress? What do you think? Only slight questions, aren't they, ever?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that WordPress is going to continue to dominate in the small business arena for creating websites and powering websites, if not even become more gain more market share than it has. The improvements that it has every year, the platform that for plugins and development for that, it just keeps getting better and easier to use. And especially since there's more competition with Squarespace and Wix. A lot of people that wouldn't be creating websites on their own, they get in the door with a Wix website or a Squarespace website, and then they see that there's so much more that they could be doing, and then they'll convert over to WordPress, and then they'll be like, oh, this is so much here. Let me just find, now that I've got my website up, now let me create more of it. And these are people that wouldn't have had a website to begin with. But because Squarespace and Wix exist now, they're feeding into WordPress in ways that wouldn't have happened before. Even just having Facebook pages now is allowing more people to create WordPress sites. So the barrier to entry is much lower now, and it's all the better for WordPress.
Just an anecdotal sub question before I throw it over to Stephen. I'm finding the decision, well, obviously I don't have all the facts in front of me, but I'm finding increasingly I'm a bit frustrated. I'm a bit puzzled by the decision making of the blessed leader of WordPress. So like you say, you're quite upbeat, and part of me is upbeat with you but I'm finding just the PR, just the way things are handled in the WordPress community to be quite corrosive and unnecessary in some ways. You got any insights what might be lead? I think what I'm saying, there seems to be a mismatch between a lot of people that are well known in the WordPress community and the the kind of public face, Matt, there doesn't seem to be a lot of, I'm struggling now to find the right word, but I think you got the drift, haven't you? So want to comment on that, Heather?
So a lot of times companies will put out PR or only release information that they're allowed to. The marketing people have a very thankless job because the community, especially an active one like WordPress, they want things now. They want things fixed. They at Evernote, we had a bug list that was years long, and the feature list was even longer, and everyone wanted their feature fixed immediately. And it was our marketing department's job to try and explain just what was coming up in our own roadmap. And then I remember when we released the Evernote Market and we were releasing socks and things, people were like, why on earth are you doing socks when you can't even fix like the note syncing? Well, I mean, because that's what we happen to be focusing on this quarter. But it's not just this quarter. I mean, it took us 2 years to work on this particular project, and we're only just releasing it now. But we're still working on the bugs. We're still working on those things. And you only release information about it when there's something to release. So, I mean, just because they're not releasing something doesn't mean they're not working on it.
I see where you come from, but I think there's a slightly bigger problem. But, we can talk about that in the bonus content. Over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, I feel like it's really interesting dealing with end customers and like their wants and needs, and trying to balance that with like your internal organization's wants and needs and where that's going. And it can become a complex thing, especially when people don't understand that the guy that's fixing the bug probably hasn't been reallocated to shipping socks. Like those are two different people. They're still happening at the same time. Like it's going to be okay. In looking into the WordPress space, to me, it feels very different than like the huge VC, I'm trying to build a unicorn, large startup kind of thing. And I think that's because in the WordPress space, there's a lot more open source stuff. It's starting to like that area of business seems like it's starting to come into the WordPress area. But somebody who's been like involved in Evernote, right, who's built like their own product, it's not on top of WordPress at all or anything like that. So like in the WordPress area, you have a lot more small companies that are trying to go bigger or do like try to build in a product. Like and they start with WordPress because it's like a very approachable area to start. They can like build the first proof of concept. How do you know when it's time to maybe move from WordPress to something else, or can you stay in the WordPress space, do you feel, and like keep building the business as big as you can? Like, how do you make those sort of decisions that can kind of alter the whole trajectory of a business?
Well, as somebody that builds on WordPress, you know that you're beholden to their APIs and their products and their developments. So you can certainly make a career on it. Lord knows you've seen how much money that some of the larger developments, like, I mean, just look at Tribal and how much money they just made. Like there's a lot of money to be made, especially if you've got good marketing or you hit upon the unicorn idea for the WordPress people. But the problem is whenever you're building on someone else's product, you have to deal with what they build, and they can always break you. So it's always okay to be a follow-on. But if you feel you're ready to use that as passive income and move on to something else, and you have an idea for that, and you have the marketing newsletter from all the people that have subscribed to your product, and you think you can go out on your own, then go for it. Just know that like, for example, with peanut butter, I mean, you got to compete for shelf space. And if you're trying to go out on your own with a brand new peanut butter, you got to contact all of those supermarkets and try to get any of them to carry you. And then you got to pay for that shelf space all on your own. And like, just getting the first one is hard and expensive. and then to get any other ones to carry you, you got to do it all over again. So, I mean, with WordPress, you've got a built-in audience, and for a lot of people, it's just easier to do that.
Yeah, that's cool. What are some other things that you talk about in your book? Like just maybe some teasers so people get a little bit more context.
Well, if you like cats, there are a lot of cats in this book.
Nice.
Yeah, no, what's different about this book is, again, as I touched on this before, that it doesn't just capture the business advice, because that's actually, like, I kind of did like a hide the kale kind of thing. Like the business advice is woven into the stories, and it follows me. It's written in like a narrative sort of way. Like a lot of people have told me that I wrote it as if it was fiction, like as if it was like a fun kind of thriller book. Like they felt like they were reading a Clive Cussler novel. So like, and I mean, if you like, and that's great, because Clive Cussler novels were always my favorite. I love Dirk Pitt. Those books were, I loved them. And yeah, Raise the Titanic was one of my favorite books growing up. So if this lives up to Raise the Titanic kind of level thriller fun, then yay. But that's the point. Like I want you to feel like Dirk Pitt is going on an adventure, and that you're right there with him in this book. And so that's one of the little spoilers about this, that like it's not like you're reading dry business tips at a lecture. You are on an adventure, because entrepreneurship is an adventure.
Yeah.
And for some people, like I've actually gotten letters from people that told me they were angry for me because of how I was treated. And that they wished like some parts had happened sooner, but they were relieved at the end of it.
Man, this sounds great. Who's gonna end up going buying a copy to hear this arc?
Yeah. So other people have told me, like, again, about the cats. Like one of my favorite things that somebody told me was they said that they were in it, like they were convinced that I was the best person, like the kindest, nicest, sweetest person, because even though it was painful for me to be separated from my husband for a few months, I stayed with my cat instead of rehoming him.
Cats can get you through anything.
That's the lesson you got to learn. You got to stay with your cat. No matter what happens. Right, there we go. Well, we're getting close to the end of the podcast part of the show. Heather's going to stay on for the bonus content, which you'll be able to watch the bonus content and the whole interview on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. There's loads of stuff on the channel. Go and subscribe and hit the bell. That really helps the show. So Heather, what's the, obviously I will have links to Amazon where you can buy your book. That's obviously I will do that for you. But what are some of the other best ways that people can find out more about you and what you're up to?
You can reach me everywhere on the internets at Heatheriel. So HEATHRIEL. Heatheriel.com. Heatheriel on all the socials. Right.
And Stephen's helped the WP-Tonic website become more of a speed machine. If you're really looking for help when it comes to optimizing your website, Stephen and his crew are the people to approach. So, Stephen, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, head over to zipfish.io. You can run a free speed test. You can see how much faster we can make your website.
That's great. And like I say, if you want to see the bonus content and the whole show, go over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. Also, you can join us on Fridays at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and Heather joins us regularly on that show as well, where we have a weekly discussion about WordPress and the latest tech stories of the week. And I really enjoyed the show. It's a bit of a it's a bit of a blast. We'll see you soon next week, folks, with another great guest. See you soon. Bye. Bonus content then. So for like younger women that are entering the tech scene, have you got any kind of tips and insights about if you had a younger woman approaching you and they really wanted to get into the tech world, either the coding or design, whatever pathway they want to choose? Have you got any kind of tips, insights that you would like to give that person, that younger woman?
So it's really hard for a lot of women to join the tech world because they've heard so many bad things, and a lot of women get discouraged because they think that because they see a lot of people are confident or they're using acronyms that they don't know or talking about things like containers or I mean, there's a lot of words that they don't know, and then they think, oh, I'm never going to get this. Well, I mean, the thing is, no matter what job or group or anything you join, there's a vocabulary that you have to learn. So um, my thing is just get into it. Just, I mean, if you have any sort of desire to learn or join, just jump, take the leap and go. And don't be afraid of boys. Don't be afraid of the guys here, because I mean, you may hear on the internet and you'll see in the news that there's bad people, that there's guys that bash other guys. I've actually had more problem with other women in my career than guys. The guys have actually helped me get to
Was that,
where
do you think
I
that was based on some form of jealousy?
I mean, I think women are very catty, and I mean, like, I mean, I'm very snarky, and I mean, I know like a lot of
Well,
people.
you know how to put up with my bullshit,
Yeah.
but you tolerate it to a certain extent, which is most welcome, Heather. But you know the boundaries, and you make that quite clear. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, like, I mean, there are a lot of women that are afraid of letting, because, okay, let me put it this way. There's often, when you go into a tech company, if you see a woman, there's usually just that one, in any department. So if another one comes along, suddenly, like, that one that has fought so hard to get noticed has another one that is there, and now they won't be like noticed as much anymore. It's the I'm not the new kid on the block thing. So it's not necessarily jealousy, but it's like this feeling of, I now have competition, because even though there's like maybe 30 other people on the team, you only have one other person that people are comparing you to. So now you have to be competitive. And that's the problem. Like, women are forced to compete with each other because there's only like one or two of you. Or and we don't want to compete with each other. We want to be helpful.
yeah, sure. Over to you, Stephen.
With working in a kind of a fast-paced startup environment that grew rapidly, what are like some helpful like tips or tricks or things to keep in mind? Like as we're building our companies or everyone's building their own, like how do you hire, how do you grow to make sure that you do have like a playing field that has diversity, but everyone else is also playing nicely together, and you don't end up in a situation like you just kind of described, where people are being forced to compete for that attention, where you can be like, hey, like we're all in this together, and kind of create that we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all on the same team.
Hiring is a whole issue. You have to figure out who's already on your team and what their skills, not just their skills, but what their personalities are, what their methods of working are, how they interact with other people. I mean, you have to look at the whole person. I had one employee once that his best work was like he did it while he was playing Call of Duty. Like, I mean, I'm sure you know people like this.
Yeah,
That like,
for sure.
I mean, he would think like, I mean, he would have like his controller in one hand and be typing in the other, and like it would just focus him to do his best work. And he would be doing this from like midnight to 6 a.m. I could never get him to show up to a meeting. If his life depended on it, he would never show up to a meeting. But he was my best performing employee. And like, I mean, if I had forced him to come into an office and make him stop doing this, he would have easily been fired in a week because he would have just stopped working well. So you have to understand, you have to be able as a manager to be flexible to know how to get the most productive, most efficient, best work out of the people you have and keep them happy. Because I mean, can you imagine how happy he was that I allowed him to work that way?
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot of places that probably would let somebody do that, but like if you can see that that's how they work and that's how they do their best work, like why not? I mean, that's what you're trying to get from everybody. So who cares what the process is behind that?
Exactly. Yeah, with everybody, I'm like, do your work, get your work done on time. I don't care how you do it. I mean, I remember years ago there was a story about a guy who was working for AT&T. They paid him a certain salary, and then he took like 75% of that and spent it to outsource some guys in India to do his job. And I was just like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
If he was my employee, as long as it wasn't classified information or in any way like a problem, I would be like, dude, you found a way to like get your job done faster. Awesome.
Yeah,
I knew a guy. He's still probably there. He works for the Nevada state government. I won't say any more because I don't want him to be identified, and it's a small world. But he works for one of the large state Nevada state departments, and in a technical realm. And he's actually got a couple Indians that work for him unofficially to do some of the stuff that he's supposed to be doing. But there we go. I don't think the Nevada state would appreciate that because they're not that particularly flexible. But there we go. So I'm wondering where to take this. Let's go back to your entrepreneurship and your mentorship. There's a small mentorship organization in Northern Nevada because I am correct. Are you still based in Las Vegas?
I am.
Oh, yeah. It's called the Entrepreneur Assembly. I don't know if you heard of it. They've also got a small satellite outfit in Las Vegas as well, I think. And they used to like meet up every one Saturday a month. And I used to just go along to get some advice and also see what people were bringing to the table. What really interested me was there was a lot of people who used to turn up quite regularly and before mentorship, but they never seemed to listen to any of the advice that was given to them. They seemed to be totally unresponsive. So I learned just to keep my mouth shut because there's no point in giving somebody his honest point of view if they're not going to really listen to any of it. And I don't mean in the way that they should slavishly just listen, because who am I? I haven't built up a multiple business. I just make a reasonable living. Why should they listen to me? But it's so obvious that they're not listening to anything. So why do they seek mentorship? Have you heard that regularly, Heather?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had so many people that, that's why I wrote a book of stories that I told over and over again. I mean, like so many people, they have not only have the same problems, but they ask them over and over again. And I'm like, one of my best friends, she and I met because I was advising her company, and the first time I met her, I I told her that there was certain things that needed to change about her company, and she got angry with me and stormed out. And then I was like, oh, well, I'm never going to see this person again. 6 months later, she'd thought about it, like completely processed the information, and come back and said, can we continue that conversation, because I've thought about what you said, and I think that some of these things are right, but this particular thing I'm not budging on, but the rest of it's okay. So, but I mean, I appreciated that, because she was the only one that actually came back.
That's great.
Dear. So basically, get back to the women issue, and it's also a minority issue. I think it is quite difficult, isn't it? Because unless you put in strict quotas, and I hate that concept myself, because I think that in some ways it's nothing more patronising than having a quota for a minority, you know. But a lot of people have put, you know, when I brought that up towards other groups of people, some people have put some serious facts in front of me that until you do apply quotas, it really is almost impossible to get any fundamental change. What's your opinion about that? You know, because I have looked at that data, and it does seem to suggest that you can only get real change if you do apply quotas. But on a spiritual level, on a psychic level, it just kind of grates with me, you know, that you should have to do that.
Well, of course, we don't want to have to do that. And I have also the same aversion to quotas as well, but I've also never had a problem getting a job. So I know that
So you've never felt that a male has been hired
no.
because they were a male and you were a woman, and it was
No.
clearly that you were a better candidate.
Yeah, I've also been a product of reverse discrimination, where I was hired because I was a woman. But this wasn't like because of a quota. This was because I fit a costume that there was no way they were going to hire a man for. Like they needed me to fill a costume for 7 of 9 from Star Trek, and and they were definitely not going to hire a man for that
sorry,
job.
I'm not going to go down that route. You've worked for some interesting employers. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing. No, but today, like in today's world, they would have to consider men for that job. And but back then, there was no way that they would even consider a man for that job. So.
Yeah, but I think in you know, it affects everybody, because you know there's a lot of people we get over the age of 50. They just think your brain is you've stopped thinking, or somehow you're no longer a effective individual if you get over a certain age, or if you come from a certain ethnic group, or a load of stuff. And I think what's become more evident is the kind of bizarre and very different thinking so many of our fellow citizens have, isn't it?
Well, I can tell you that the only thing that, as a hiring manager, as somebody that has hired a lot of people over the years, the only thing that I've ever looked at on a resume that has made me pause is somebody that has a PhD and no work experience. That is the one thing that will stop me from considering even interviewing.
Go to England. There's a million of them there.
Yeah. No. I mean, I've seen it so many times. There's tons of people that have a PhD and no work experience outside of like the research they've done for their PhD. And I'm like, you spent all that time working towards the PhD, and then you expect to get like an engineering position or whatever position at a top tier company, or any kind of company. Like, I mean, and all you have have the experience to do is either teach or work at McDonald's. Like that's it. Or I mean, if you didn't go to work at like in your PhD field as a researcher, and you're trying to work somewhere else, then that's where I question it.
Right, Eva, I think we'll wrap it up there. It's been a joy chatting with you. I think we've covered a lot of spectrum in this conversation, but you dealt with it very well. Thank you. And that's not patronizing, because I know that these conversations can go all over the place because you've got to deal with me. Thank you so much, Heather. We'll see you next week. We'll have another great guest like Heather. We'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.